Okay, so to take a look at his traits, well, perks and all that, here's where we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of more of the narrative and where I think his level up should go. So, let's talk about episode 1. Ed is dead. First off, let me give my greatest appreciation as I can to Mr. Lee, because Mr. Lee, when I went to him as an editor, and he's been my editor for a couple videos I've done, I just was expecting something nice, short, sweet, and he completely took the format I was going for and evolved it to what you guys have seen of the machinima-like quality. This is not even from me wanting it, as in like, oh, you need to stop doing this. It's more of like, oh, wow, you're like, wait, you don't have to do that. And he just kept saying, no, I'm going to do it. 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 And so he took a lot of the assets that we used, a lot of which are mods, which we will always have linked in the descriptions in case you guys ever look at them. But he took the one work in progress mod, Fallout the Story. He added more to it, like, for example, Ed, there is a skeleton in the original mod, but it's more of a skeleton in a dress. Doesn't really look like what would be Ed at all, just looks like a woman. And he puts, like, this vault security helmet on it, he puts the Bowie knife on it, literally the 10mm ammo pack with the casing rounds around it, like, such a fine level of detail in the cinematic shots, and he went through fucking hell and purgatory just to get those shots, because we ran into several technical issues, his OBS literally not stopping on recording, so we thought, oh fuck, the files are corrupted or they're just kaput. And then when they did work, we were like, okay, well look, we're just gonna operate on screenshots, because my whole thing was, if we're gonna do any visual assets at first, I was thinking it was just gonna be slideshows, right, like still shot screenshots, But no, he went the extra mile. He kept going at it and going at it and going at it. And eventually, it evolved to such a way to where I was like, okay, man. Yo, this is clearly your passion project with me. As long as you don't overdo it to where this is still consistent to upload regularly, that's all I care about at this point. And yeah, special shout out to Mr. Lee. He blew it out of the fucking park. I love you, dude. You are incredible. You are insane, but you are incredible as well. So, episode 1, Ed is dead. Obviously, as you can see by the stat up here, he only has a 30% in small guns, whereas big guns he's 5, energy weapons he's 5. He's dog shit with combat. And even though he did kill a couple rats, I still very much want to keep him super underhand when it comes to combat. I think he's just a wimp. I think it makes sense for the character that has been literally bred and domesticated and then thrown out in the wild. It's like if you had a lion in a zoo that was always used to, eating and being fed and having pamper grooming, and then you release that lion out in the desert, the sub-Saharan desert, or wherever lions roam. That lion's gonna die in like 2 weeks, right? And definitely I wanted to make sure by episode 2, when he has that encounter with the first Khan, with the coyotes, that there could have been a reality where Crispin would have ended up like Ed, faster than anything else. But it's that luck that he has on his side. So, with that said, literally him only landing a couple shots on rats and him missing every shot possible on the rat scorpions, he's going to barely get 32%. Now, in terms of his tag skills, I do think I want to up his skills a bit because of his conversations between him and Ian. I know the first couple episodes, episode 1, episode 2, it made it seem like he wasn't really that charismatic when he was always panicking and just kind of like freaking the fuck out. But once he kind of got acclimated, spent a day in Shady Sands, had more conversations with Ian, who was more, open and not as guarded, I kind of wanted to see, okay, here's a scared, traumatized vault dweller. First week, canonically, in the game. Surviving so much crazy stuff out the gate. How is he gonna now have himself adapt with his only good skill on his side, his only survival mechanism, which is to be funny, to be entertaining, to be jokey. And so I think with his engagement with Ian, I have bumped that to an 80. He's not like, a Casanova by any means. He's not like someone that's going to wow everybody on the spot, but once he gets more comfortable in the wasteland, once he gets more comfortable with the hardships and learning from Ian, he's going to start blooming. He's going to start becoming that flower that he was in the vault, the class clown, the Vault Boy Spirit Award winner, right? So I bumped it up to 80%, especially by how, in the actual gameplay, I was able to convince Ian without even having to pay 100 bottle caps, which I never had that on any playthrough I've ever done of Fallout. So I like to think that's because of a high charisma stat, but I could just be mechanically inept about how that actually happened. So comment below how that even happened. But yeah, I interpret it as he's charismatic enough to where Ian gave an ultimatum to him and was like, look, I like you, you're funny, you're cool, I'm not even going to charge you money, but if you want me to take you under my wing, you gotta have to be trained for something, and these rad scorpions are good practice. So, that said, we now get into episode 6. So yeah, 60 repair. Now this was a little interesting. We had 6 skill points left, and we were trying to think, well, what else has this guy really been doing out here? And he's gotten a little better at sneaking, I want to say, in terms of the narrative. Episode 2, of course, he was able to sneak past the con. Episode 5, with the Rad Scorpions, was him trying to sneak. And in general, I think he has to learn this skill if he wants to literally run away from combat at any point in time. So it was kind of more of like okay, well, for narrative's sake and also for the sake of actual gameplay when I'm playing Fallout 1, to make it a little playable, we're going to bump up his skills a little bit for sneak. Now then, that was basically what me and Mr. Lee took in account of his level and what we wanted his level up to be. Now for you guys who are going to be watching this way, way past in post, I want to know your thoughts so far on the series. I want to know, of course, your thoughts on the episodes, if what you think here makes sense. Because at the end of the day, even though it's like a story that I want to tell for you guys as consistent content, your guys' engagement is what makes me continue this content. So, if at any point in time, by past of episode 6 with this level up, if there's really not a lot of engagement, you guys are like, it's good, but we kind of want you to move on to something else, you could almost think that this is like almost a season 1 finale waiting to be prepped for season 2, right? So, if you want me to move on to something else and do something better, I will. I'll obviously listen to you guys. But so far, I've been having an amazing time with just the direction that we took. Now, in terms of the challenges that me and Mr. Lee faced, because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. So like I said, Mr. Lee did a lot of visual uplifting in terms of like certain things using the assets of mods that we linked below, like Fallout the Story, a lot of the classic packs from Web, some of the stuff that I just think in general is just chef's kiss. By the way, shout out Webb. He's a good dude. I love Webb. He's a great guy. We kind of ran into an issue of not just having to visually overhaul certain things like how Ian looked, because there's going to be footage floating on the screen of actually what the Fallout Story version of Ian looked. We also had issues with how to do cinematic shots without overdoing it and basically wasting enough time to where it no longer was what I intended, which was a series that I could easily upload on the regular, right there, right then, boom, 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 post, right, while I'm in between gigs. We wanted something to be high quality, we wanted something to be fun and exciting, but we also wanted it to be casual and normal and cool, and that's it. So, with a lot of deliberation, with a lot of conversations and back and forths, we came to more of this conclusion where, for the sake of time management on my end, I would make a lot of mock-up shots in bulk. He would then recreate those mock-up shots from his version of his Fallout New Vegas. And going by literally what you're seeing on the screen now, like a literal OBS recording of Fallout 1 proper, of the playthrough of how I did things in the actual Fallout 1 game, he would then recreate those scenes with Fallout New Vegas.
With this, the scenery and the themes that was happening at the time, or that was in the audio, the stuff that I was getting from it, I was kind of thinking like I was getting frustrated because I didn't feel like I could really flesh out anything visually with just still images. So I started doing filming things, and then I started doing set dressing by editing things in the gig. And I think a lot of that also came out of a hyperfixation at the time, because I was watching a lot of Fallout 3, like 2010s machinimas, like what you were talking about, Tricortha Productions, stuff from Bombs Away Films, Shoddy Cast, things of that nature. I was just, because I watched these things as a kid, and I was just kind of going on a nostalgia trip for a while, and a bit of a hyperfixation. And I just kind of like, I really wanted to do like movie magic things. I'd always had a bit of an interest, I guess, in like, I guess, movie making. Mm-hmm. And so when I had the chance to go off the rails, I just did.
When we wanted to go off the pale, like during the travel sequences where it's like episodes that are filler about what Ian and Crispin are going to get up to, and also just before that, we really thought, okay, for the episodes we're going to be making past this, if this gets a lot of good engagement, we were really thinking, man, how cool would it be if there was just downtime filler episodes of like Ian still teaching Crispin on the road a week down to where they're going to Junktown, finding like abandoned shacks, finding dead skeletons, letters, old buildings with terminal entries. And that's kind of the direction that we're going to be taking it, if you guys really want this series to continue, is that it's not just, me just interpreting what the base Fallout 1 game is going to be, but more so what the in-betweens of fast travel really means for Crispin and Ian. Because if it's one thing that I really wished that could happen, is that I wish Fallout 1 had a remake in the more open world approach, where it's not just you're stuck between kind of like hub worlds or like level tiles of just town to town to town, and then there's random encounters. I wanted Fallout 1 when I was growing up and like just kind of playing it. Like, I had such vivid imaginations of it being a whole open world explored, like Fallout 3, like Fallout New Vegas, where you could find like the in-between gaps of old abandoned buildings along the stretched highways, desolate cars, stuff that you could scavenge. And I know that, Fallout 1 has like probable chance of you can find items that you spawn into to stuff, to grab, but I don't know, to me it just felt like if this was made today, it could be so much more, right? And that's not to slight the obvious limitations of the game in the 90s. I mean, dude, it's a irrational fantasy I have of a game that really, for obvious reasons, influenced me to make a series about, right? I love Fallout 1. I love Fallout 2. I've said in the past, of course, that I prefer Fallout 2 over Fallout 1, but kind of taking this nice, cool spin on how I play Fallout 1 has made me appreciate it way more than I think I ever gave it credit for until now. So yeah, that's going to be the pathway I think we want to take, is more in-betweens of on the road. What's going to happen between Ian? What's going to happen between him and Crispin? And then when we get to Junktown, of course, that's going to be a whole fucking thing that I can't wait for, because we get to Junktown, I want to say episode 8, and the visual assets of Fallout the Story is so good. Like, it genuinely makes me upset how much Fallout the Story had in terms of what was worked on, the advanced scripting and everything, and just how it was left to basically fade away to time. It was so good for, like, the level designs, the visual assets of Shady Sands, Junktown. They had animated signs like in the Junktown proper from Fallout 1 of, like, spinning signs of, I think it was gizmos. I'll have it on the screen at some point, but yeah, man, it's so good. They even scripted the same encounters that you would see from Fallout 1, you know, of Killian Darkwater almost being assassinated, of the punks, right? And I think it's the scum pit. Yeah, like, there's just so much that Fallout the Story had going for it. And while obviously me and Mr. Lee, we can only do so much to make it and visually enhance it, I would like to see at some point in the near future someone try to pick up the pieces and recreate this beauty, because if it didn't exist, we would be kind of fucked for doing anything visual that we're able to do now, like in this kind of machinima style ordeal. So big props for the people who made Fallout the Story, even if obviously they're not working on it at any point in time. It's like over a decade old. And also for when we do get into more interpretive stuff past the story, like, you know, the super mutant army, all that, it's going to be a big shout out to a lot of the other retexture mod authors, people like Webb, and so on, that I'll also put maybe on the screen or just in the description still. So yeah, but that said, I think we're going to wrap up this segment. I don't know if this is going to be the end of the video or not, so if this is the end of the video, the next segment over will just be the outro sequence. If it's a part of, well, a whole big ass video, you're going to see just another segment sliding in.